Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host, and very excited to welcome our guest this morning, who's making waves on social media with her thoughtful insights and commitment to living out her faith. Amber Schneider, known to as many as the religious hippie, is here to talk with us about the importance of modesty, both inside and outside of the Holy Mass. Amber's journey and her dedication to promoting modesty in a modern world are inspiring, just to say the least. And we're very excited to hear her insights and practical tips on how we can embrace that beauty, the beautiful virtue in our daily lives. Good morning and welcome to the show, Amber.
Good morning, Keith. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Now,
Of
you've made
course.
it very clear, I've seen on social media, like especially on X, of all places that needs it, but that dressing and acting with modesty is important for us Catholics. So I'm curious to know, what inspired you to really embrace and promote it?
Yeah, when I was away from my faith for about 8 years, I really fell into the world's idea of what beauty was. And the world's idea of beauty is being like hot and being sexual and this and that. And as a young girl, you believe that your body is who you are. And if you don't look a certain way or look the way the celebrities look, then you're failing, you're ugly. And for me, that was something that I went through in high school. I had body dysmorphia, I had depression, I was self harming, all these things because I didn't feel beautiful. And when I came back into my faith and I started really internalizing being a daughter of God and, realizing God doesn't make mistakes and no matter what, we are all made in his image and likeness, that's when I really started realizing I don't have to show my body off for anybody. Um, and actually, I felt so much better when I didn't do that. First of all, it's way more comfortable. I don't have to pull something down or pull something up or worry about flashing anybody. And I mean, I guess people don't really care about that these days, anyways. But I definitely wanted to embrace more of like what made me me and embracing my body and treating it like a temple of the Holy Spirit. So, really, for me, being able to express myself, but not feel as though I had to show everything was really, really important because it gave me a new found confidence in my own body and it led me to actually take better care of myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I really feel for the young people out there that are just so enveloped with social media because you're only seeing these positive and not, well, not necessarily positive, but like you're seeing these images and you're comparing. Even guys compare ourselves to other guys. It's crazy. But what would you say, or at least how would you define modesty, and why would you say it's important for Catholics both inside and outside of the Holy Mass to have modesty?
Yeah, I think modesty, it's a thing. I think a lot of people, when they think of modesty, they think of clothing, but it
Mm.
also has to do with our state of mind. Are we constantly making dirty jokes? Do we constantly think of people in a lustful way? There are different ways we practice modesty. And I really do believe that when you boil it down, modesty is respecting our bodies, our God-given bodies, and through that we are glorifying God.
Mm.
And not just that, but also, you think about who you're going to marry in the future, and sometimes that's Jesus because you go to religious life. But like, how beautiful will it be when your spouse is the first person to gaze upon you for real, like, not anybody else, not thousands of people who don't care about you, but truly the one person who does, outside of God, of course, or if you are in religious life, God. And so I feel like it's really important that we practice modesty. One of the main things that I see, especially today, is, it's really hard for, um, I think women get hit a lot with the physical modesty, with like the dressing and everything, and the men get hit with like the mind modesty. But it kind
Mm.
of goes both ways. I know a lot of women who can be very not modest in their way of thinking, and I know a lot of men who do not dress very modestly. And sometimes that's even just dressing appropriately to our state in life, not looking disheveled all the time
Mm.
and things. I mean, if you're in the comfort of your home, do whatever you want. But I definitely think when it comes down to it, there are like modesty of speech, modesty of mind, and modesty of clothing.
Mm,
And, having and internalizing modesty is really important because we need to know how to address appropriately for different, I guess, events in our lives, whether that's mass or uh, breakfast with a friend or working out.
yeah. It's very important to know that there's different areas or methods of modesty. It's very important. And you're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and we are talking with Amber Schneider, also known as the religious hippie, on modesty. Now, veiling is it's a hot topic nowadays, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, Amber, what would you tell a woman who might be struggling on whether to veil or not to veil at Mass?
Keith, I get so many emails about this specific topic because so many women are drawn to wanting to veil and they're so afraid because maybe their church, they're the only ones who veil. Maybe they don't go to a TLM parish like I do or to a parish that feels a little bit more supportive in that area. And so they kind of feel like a fish out of water. And what I always say is if you are feeling like you are called to veil and you're afraid because you don't know how people are going to react to it, and a lot of people like who do veil, they don't want to wear a bright white veil on top of their like dark hair. So I tell them, I'm like, go on Etsy and look at some of the veils they have there and try to get a veil that best matches your hair color. It's not too hard to do. I've done it, but I would definitely say if you're feeling called, God has put that calling on you for a reason. And you definitely need to listen to that. We can't really care about what other people think. We need to care about what God thinks. And if you feel like you might be a distraction, of course, you can put on a veil that looks more closer to your hair color. But I definitely think we think a little bit too much of ourselves, and we kind of have to not take ourselves so seriously. And we have to just put on the veil for God and just see what happens. I was in Colorado last year and I went to a parish that was definitely not, the type where you would think veiling would be accepted, but I was the only one who was veiling, but I had like 5 or 6 old ladies come up to me and be like, "Oh, I used to have a veil like that. That's so pretty." And not one of them was like, "Oh, why are you wearing that? That makes me feel bad." Like, no, everyone was
Mm.
like, "That is so cute." And yeah, so you never really know how you're going to impact somebody by expressing yourself in that way and being a witness, I guess, to Christ in that way too.
So there's a lot of listeners out there that are parents, maybe even grandparents. What would you say? How could they at least teach maybe young people or their children, grandchildren, the value of modesty in a positive or an encouraging way?
I really think it just comes down from not treating modesty like it's a punishment or it's something that, you have to do this, otherwise God will not love you. A lot of people, I think, growing up from millennials in my generation were kind of taught if you don't have your shoulders covered or your knees covered or this or that, that you're a bad person or God doesn't love you. You're committing like a mortal sin. And it's really brimstone and fire.
Mm.
Now, of course, I know some families who really struggled with it, but I grew up in a homeschool family. And so a lot of people that I surrounded myself with, they they were modest, but they were like the jean skirt, polo over jean skirt type of homeschooler. So I never really thought modesty was something that was fashionable. I thought,
Mm.
if I want to be fashionable, I'm going to wear tank tops and booty shorts and stuff and this and that. But in reality, you can make modesty so fashionable. And I really think we kind of need to show that to the younger generation because they're attracted to things that are beautiful. And if
Mm.
we stop making modesty ugly, I think they're naturally going to be attracted to it. So I think it really comes down to dressing well first and being the person who does look presentable. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, don't just throw on, sweatpants and a t-shirt with stains on it. Actually dress for the job. And I'm not saying you can't have days like that. Like, please, by all means, some days are like that, I'm sure. Um, but I am saying, your kids look at you and they look at your example, and if they're like, oh, mom's like has a rat's nest in her hair and she's like always in sweatpants and everything, and they're just gonna be like, well, I'm gonna go over here where there's like cool stuff like tank tops and things. And you
Mm.
know um So I really think it starts with making modesty beautiful again, and making it something that the young people want to do, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes them feel like, they're glorifying God in their bodies, but also they feel beautiful, and for the men too, so that they feel handsome. I know so many men
Mhm.
who put on a suit and a tie and instantly their whole personality changes from being like, oh, yeah, whatever, to being like, hey guys, how's it going? And I think, the way we present ourselves tells us a lot about how we view ourselves on the inside. So I think that's the most important thing, is making it beautiful again.
I'd love to see a hat now that says "Make modesty beautiful again."
Hey
That would
man, I
be.
might I might come out with that. Who knows?
With all of that said, do you have any maybe lasting words for our listeners out there that might be struggling with modesty, or might know somebody that might be struggling with modesty?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to realize that everybody's on their own modesty journey. You can't force somebody to be modest who hasn't had that conviction yet. I think the best thing for you to do if you have a friend is to set that example for them. Make modesty beautiful, dress in beautiful things. And, when you meet with them and everything, have earrings in and, have a dress that's really pretty, but also not like a prom dress, but, simple but beautiful, elegant. And you can show them through your example that, modesty is beautiful. If you yourself are struggling with modesty, I would say start off slow. I think it's
Mm,
something that a lot of people try to jump into and then they backtrack. I would
mm,
actually start with unfollowing models and people on social media who dress immodestly. I know that that's not usually the most normal thing that people suggest, but I do,
right.
because we are what we consume. If you're constantly consuming these content creators who are dressing immodestly, you're naturally going to want to buy the clothes that they have off Amazon. You're naturally going to look for clothes like
Yep.
that. So I would say unfollow those people and, start off slow. Start off by getting rid of a few pieces in your closet and
Great tip. Hey, I
looking
don't mean to
through 'em.
cut you off. We'll talk
Yeah.
about this in the after show clubhouse, but thank you so much, Amber, for joining us. We can find you at The Religious Hippie on all the social medias. And that's it for Morning Joy, where truth matters. God bless, and make it a joyful day.